One of the hardest things to do to show about CANFIT is how many reports there are. There's, I think at last count, about 200 reports that we generate, and some of them are very complex, dealing with groups of agencies and aggregating information together between pre and post reports and finding trends. But what I wanted to do is show you just a few types of reports, just to get you into the frame of mind that your reports are only limited to your imagination. And a lot of these reports that were designed in CANFIT came from ideas from users about what they wanted to see and how they wanted to be able to tell their story and what kind of trends that they could find. So let's start with one report here that we have, which is a report that we developed for a legal clinic. And they basically wanted to see something like a correlation between the type of issues that came in, so landlord-tenant or family matters and stuff like that. And they wanted to correlate it with marital status and income. And they wanted to see if there was any trends that they could sort of see. So you can see here that it's grouped by landlord and tenant, the marital status, and then how many people fell into any one of those categories, the percentage of people that fell into those categories, and then just the number in there. And then you can see here that on the next page, then you have some more groupings like legal aid appeal, other benefits, etc. So basically it was just a nice little breakdown of correlating three different things: the type of legal issue, the marital status, and the income range. The next report that I'm going to show is something that's just a really straightforward report. It's basically just showing the results of a survey. So you would have the questions that they entered into the database, the answers that they entered into the database, and then it just sort of sums it up about what people answered what to what questions and what the percentages were. So for example, this first question, they had 83 people that were strongly agree, and the percentage, and then totals, of course. Okay. Here's another report that is really kind of interesting, because it actually came about by a lady at one of the clinics who just was brainstorming and just said, it would be really nice to see what concentration of clients that we have in certain parts of the city. And she said, normally what I do is I take some of the reports and I have a map on the wall, and I kind of put pins on where the people are, and then at the end of the day I can see some trends, and then I report to the funder. And she says, is there any way that you could do that in the database? And as a matter of fact, we can. And the reason that we can is because we also do support for 83 constituencies throughout Alberta for provincial political parties and stuff. So I knew actually how to get the constituency maps, and I knew how to be able to superimpose the results from a report onto that map. So basically this is what we came up with. Was she would run her report how she normally does, and then she would actually find out the concentrations of people in a certain city. Again, it's just an example of the user being able to brainstorm something, us communicating with the user to find out if we could do it, and then coming up with a nice report. Here's a report that's a really standard report in CANFIT, which is basically the idea that your logic model has your success indicators that you've entered into the system, and because you track those success indicators through your case notes and through your goals and referrals, at the end of the day this is the kind of report that comes up, which will basically show you the type of success indicator that you had, how many entries that you had, how much time spent, and this is occurred end time. So this is something like if they were non-client calls, you could actually do a tally sheet at the end of the day that said that you had 20 calls that were telephone information about other resources, and you made 16 entries in there, but it was actually 249 people who had called about that. So at the end of the day you can actually see exactly how many people called within a certain day range. And again, you have the breakdown of different type of log types, face-to-face and standard, etc. Okay, here's a report that's really common throughout all the agencies. And it's something called a files ever open report, or registrations ever open. And basically what you're doing is you're taking a date range and you're specifying which programs and which activities that you want to report on. And you want to find out how many people were open on a certain date, so that's your starting number. How many people came in within a date range, those are the new people that had come in. The number of people that were already started and the new people, so adding those two figures up. The number of people that had closed during that date range, and then at the end of the day, how many people were open on the final date range. So here's an example of where Alberta Health and Wellness was one of the programs. They had one activity in there. They had 2 new registrations, that's 2, and they had open date 2. So that's a pretty simple one. For childcare, they had 31 people open on October 1st. They had 7 new registrations. That means that you had served 38 people during that date range because there was already people in there was new ones. And that 2 people had closed during that date range, which means that on December 31st, there was 36 people that you were serving. So with this report, it lists all the programs and all the activities. You'll notice that with certain programs, you'll have more than one activity. So the perinatal program has 2 activities. Here's how many people were open on that date range, new people, how many were ever open, closed, and then open on the 2 date. And we'll just go to the final page there. And then at the end of the report, we have the grand totals of how many people were open, how many new ones, how many were ever open, how many people had closed during the date range, and how many people were open on the 2 date. But most importantly, you have unique totals because some people might have been registered into 2 different activities during that same date range, and we don't want to count those people twice. We want that at the count of the unique number of people. So it was actually 1748 people that we had served. And then these are all unique totals here. So again, that's pretty common of what the funders want to see. The next report that we're going to look at is showing the power of your surveys, because all of these surveys are surveys that people had entered into the system. So I didn't enter any of these questions here. How did you hear about us? Word of mouth, blah, 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 blah. These are actually surveys that the agencies that I serve actually entered in. They entered in all of their own results, and then at the end of the day, when they ran the report, they could actually get stats right from there. So this is just a really good example of where there's little programming involved, and you actually are able to enter in all of your own surveys. The extension of that too is that you can actually enter in pre and post surveys and then do a comparison of how people were when they came in and how people were when they came out. Here's another example of reports where we're tracking volunteers. So it's showing the category of work that they had done, the names of the people, whether they were staff, students, board members, multicultural, other, and then their total number of hours. So you can actually get a good idea of the total number of hours for each person between a date range for whatever categories that you choose on the report screen. It gives you a unique number of people and the total number of hours. Again, on that report screen, actually, you can filter and say, well, I just want the board members within that date range, or I just want students within that date range. And then, you can see each activity grouped, and you can choose whichever activities that you want when you report on things. And then, again, at the end, it just shows the grand totals. Okay, and here's a report which is just basically saying, okay, well, I just want to see a summary of a certain volunteer, and it just shows you between a certain date range how many hours that they had volunteered. A common question that I get is how we can develop so many reports for so many agencies and have so many meetings with people and only charge a few $100s a month per agency. And the truth is that a lot of people have a lot of things in common, and things are becoming a lot more unified between funders. And so as part of my report demo, I just thought I'd show you something that we came up here with in Edmonton, with the United Way and FCSS, coming up with a joint funder report where they had similar requirements and they all wanted to see it in the same way. So when we developed this report, we could actually distribute it between 20 different agencies that we serve. And so I thought I'd show you a bit of the screen of how that looks. So this is a typical CANFIT screen where you put in the to date and the from date and the to date. This is the web-based version actually for an agency called Multicultural Health Brokers. Here's a list of the activities that they have people registered into, and I'm going to say that I want to report on the home visitation one-on-one program. And for this demo, I'm going to run the joint funder report. So we're going to click on this, and it's probably going to take a few minutes to download. One thing that you'll notice about this screen is that just like the main menu of the other screens, as you hold your mouse button over any of these other buttons, you can actually see help about what the report is based on. Again, a lot of these reports are maybe generated once every 6 months or so, so sometimes it's nice to have a bit of a reminder when you come back to the report screen to see exactly what that report does. So it acts as a bit of a help file. So what it does is it generates an Excel file. It generates it based on the Excel template that the joint funders came up with. And we're just going to save this report. And I'm just going to save it on my desktop and open it up. And there it comes with all of the numbers filled in from CANFIT. So you can see here that the number of activities for home visits. Let me just add here a little bit. So you can see here the number of home visits, the number of people, and then further down you actually have unique numbers based on age range, etc. And then of course, because it's an Excel spreadsheet and they can edit it, they can actually fill in the rest of the information here. And then once they've done all that, it actually automatically fills in the rest for them. And it calculates all of the formulas, and if it had charts in here, it would fill in the chart information. So there's just a bit of an example where somebody else came up with the design of the report, and we just incorporated it into CANFIT so that it would fill in all the numbers and produce the report for you.